This is Snowey. You can tell something's seriously wrong with her, and 1 week from now, she'll be dead. We've had Snowey for so long, close to a decade, and it was really difficult to see her like this. It all started a month ago when I noticed her perching on the ground instead of her ladder. I had just gotten a seasonal job at the Amazon Fulfillment Center as a picker, so I was gone most of the day, but when I did see her, I began to notice Snowey acting strange. She was walking on the ground for the majority of the day, and she was no longer flying around in her cage. She was having a hard time eating, almost as if she couldn't see her food. She also became really picky. She would only eat one type of seed from her usual variety of seeds. That's what she's doing when you see her rub her face into seeds. She's looking for that one seed that she can eat. Her droppings were now wet and not properly formed like it used to be. But the most obvious sign that something was wrong were her bulging eyes. If anything, this was probably the key reason why all those other things were happening. The blindness, the loss of appetite, the walking on the ground, and the wet droppings. Something was happening in her head that was causing all those other problems. Like I said before, we've had Snowey for close to a decade, and if you know anything about budgies, that was pretty much their life expectancy. So with that being said, the sentiment at home was that it wasn't worth taking Snowey to the vet because her life had probably run its course. There was no denying the truth of what my family was saying, but I remained hopeful that something could be done, so I took her anyways. The vet basically confirmed what my family had said. He also confirmed that Snowey was now fully blind, most likely due to a tumor growing in her head. This appointment was in early December, and he said Snowey would be dead in 2 weeks or so. While I was working, I couldn't stop thinking about Snowey. I decided to start researching swollen eyes in budgies, since it was the most obvious symptom that Snowey was experiencing. What I found was something called conjunctivitis, which was basically pink eye. I thought this made sense because Snowey sometimes would pass her droppings into her water cup and drink out of it. The pictures on Google Images also looked a little bit like what Snowey had. What if the first vet didn't consider the possibility of an eye infection? I thought this over for a couple of days, and decided to take Snowey to another vet for a second opinion. This other vet seemed a little bit more knowledgeable in terms of his credentials. Perhaps he could do something to save Snowey.
Pink eye is a very good observation as well. The problem is that birds don't really get pink eye the way that mammals do. Pink eye is just sort of a term to describe that the eye is red or angry, and it's what's the underlying cause of that.
Right.
In birds, what usually happens when they get the swollen eyes like this is they have air sacs that are around their eyes and around their head. And usually there's an infection in the air sacs that causes the eyes to swell up like that. What we got going on here is something completely different than that. What I'm feeling is I'm actually feeling the eyeball itself is bulging.
Right.
And that's a very, very odd thing to see because the anatomy of a bird's eye kind of prevents that from happening. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get him started on some medication that we'll add to his water.
Okay.
Medication I'm going to give you is a combination of an antibiotic and a steroid that's mixed in with some flavoring. The antibiotic will help with any potential infection that we might be seeing there. The steroid will help with any of the swelling and the inflammation. We'll also give him a little bit of extra strength and sort of boost his appetite a little bit as well.
Okay.
Anything additional that I would recommend, I would probably say if we want to try and see if we can find out more on what's going on here, we'd need to get a bit more information. And I think the best way to do that would be some blood work. The blood just came out of the machine just now, and what I am seeing is I'm seeing potentially some severe liver damage. That may mean that we're dealing with what's called with an end-stage liver. If you're dealing with anything that's an end-stage organ, that usually means it's at the end of its life.
I see.
So what ends up happening is the way that the blood results work, we're looking for enzymes that are usually associated with certain organs. And these enzymes are constantly leaking out into the blood. So as we take the blood, we measure the levels of them, and that will give us an indication of what are the kidneys doing, what is the liver doing, what's the heart doing, so on and so forth. In the situation where you have some damage to an organ, then there's a lot of enzymes that leak into the blood.
I see.
Okay. When you end up with an end-stage disease, what ends up happening is all of those enzymes have been exhausted. There's just nothing left to flow into the blood. So you end up with a low value. If this is an end-stage liver thing, we're fighting, unfortunately, a losing battle here.
I see.
And in the state that she's in right now, and with the degree of weight loss she's lost over the last 2 weeks, we're probably looking at days to weeks is what we've got left.
Days to weeks. We were right back where we started. It was obvious from the outset that Snowey probably wouldn't make it through this, but after hearing this particular second opinion that ruled out pink eye and brought in liver failure into the conversation, Snowey's death felt more near impossible. Despite this new development, I still had to try everything possible to help Snowey. Over the next several days, I tried to keep my optimism up and follow the vet's order. I mixed Snowey's antibiotic with her water and placed a drink cup near her. I saw her drinking the mixture several times, but it didn't seem to do anything for her. Her appetite had declined, and as much as I tried to help Snowey, it seemed her time was coming. There was a lot of guilt building up in me as I went along my days. As I went to work during the day, Snowey was at home suffering. You know, Snowey had gotten old and none of us had really noticed, and now that she needed help in her old age, none of us could do anything for her. We just had to let the inevitable happen. On the morning of December 27, 2020, I received a call from my mom letting me know Snowey had died. She must have passed in the middle of the night. I was spending time with my wife's family for Christmas, so I wasn't there when Snowey died, but I came home immediately. When I entered my house, I walked cautiously to where Snowey's cage was, and that's when I saw her. She was laying on her side on the ladder that I had placed for her on the floor. It was really difficult to see Snowey like that. I needed my parents' help to move Snowey out of the cage. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Her death felt even more tragic, seeing that her foot was still holding onto one of the rungs of the ladder. My dad helped me to bury her in the ravine near our house. Later that night, I made a makeshift memorial for Snowey. I rearranged her cage to look like how she used to have it when she was alive and healthy. I used my reading book light as a way to spotlight her cage, and I used an electric tea light to pay tribute to her life. Snowey's death reminded me about a story from her past. Snowey used to live with 5 other budgies in a cage. One day, her previous owners opened up her cage to let them all free. They all flew out one by one, but Snowey stayed back. That's when we got Snowey. The owner gave her to us, and she stayed with our family throughout all these years. I like to think that Snowey's death was her way of finally leaving her cage, to be free like how birds are supposed to be. I'll never forget Snowey and all the time she spent with us. The only thing I have left from her are some of her tail feathers that I've collected throughout our years together. I'll always keep them with me as a reminder of that wonderful time in our lives where we had a beautiful white budgie named Snowey, who filled our home with her lovely chirping.